Now then, welcome back to Botania, and this is the same village and the same hill and the same seed and everything as we've been playing on so far to test out the Botania mod, but I've reloaded it and started again with a little bit of a creative build of a wall around the place to set things up and have a look at what we've learnt so far. So, without further ado, let's have a look. I've been playing with a few bits and pieces. Vazkii has made this mod very well so far. Beta 10 is still what I'm playing on, but there is a Beta 12 out right now. But before I jump on and start on the Beta 12 stuff, I just wanted to have a quick look through what I've learnt so far, so that I can sort of gauge what is next, what is in Beta 12. Now, as you can see, I've put a few of the things that we've discovered so far out here, and I've also tested another couple of things. So let's start with what our basics were that we learnt. The day bloom. The day blooms have quite a large field. This isn't quite big enough because I put it in between that farm and the wall, but it's pretty big and adequate. The day blooms produce a quite steady production of mana, and they are sort of your basic flower for getting Botania mana off and up and running to get yourself started. And here we've got a mana spreader in the center of a field beaming up to a distribution mana spreader above. And in both cases, the mana spreader then pushes it out into wherever it's going. And you could just literally have this hooked up to a mana pool, like so, filling up a mana pool with all of the mana you need to do everything else in the mod. That is one method of generating mana, okay? And that's the simplest method. Fairly easy, and I can see loads of ways to lay these fields out in interesting viewpoints. So you could have your mana spreaders going down instead of going up, so that you could have the surface could be a load of day blooms on the surface, like, and then have an underground base fully powered by the mana. I've got another one over here which is doing exactly the same thing, just filling up with mana. One of the others that we looked at was the endoflame, and the endoflame, I've done a little automation, a little bit of redstone and a bit of rigging down here. So I've got a tree farm here. I shan't do any tree farming, but this is just for the example. I've got a tree farm here, a very simple, easy tree farm to set up, no problem. You harvest the wood, and then you come over to the chest. You take your wood, and it auto-ejects it. Auto-ejects it, that's what the little bit of redstone's all for. It reads it, it ejects it, it sends a quick pulse to keep firing out the wood, and these endoflames should pick up the wood and burn it to create mana. Now, not all of them are working, and when I relogged back into this world save, I had to pick up and replace all of the endoflames because they weren't working for some reason. Now, I don't know if that's a bug, and whether Vazkii will see this and have a look to see if it's fixable, it needs fixing, or whether I just did something wrong and you need to replace the endoflames. But as you can see, some of it's working fine, some of the sections are working fine, and other sections not so much. I've got these mana spreaders over here, which are then collecting the mana generated by the endoflames and beaming them up into another mana spreader. This mana spreader links across to this one gets direct feed, and I've got a potency lens on there firing over to this one. And one of the things we learned recently was how to manipulate mana with the gravity lens. And look at this in action. This means that I've had the building, the structure, a very rudimentary structure I have to say, but a structure all the same, which can go like that. There we go. It'll look okay in your world, and that just means that you can use a gravity lens to bounce mana out of structures without affecting the aesthetics of the structure. which is pretty cool. I like that. I like that touch. As you can see, I've been playing around with the other blocks that Vazkii has added. The living rock and also the living wood. I think it's living wood, isn't it? Yeah, living wood can be made into multiple different blocks from what we had with that purification flower that turns stone and wood into living rock and living wood. Well, now there's a load of crafting recipes to change the visuals of what that looks like to use it as a building material as well. And also microblocks, which I've added to cover up areas. And I have to say that it looks pretty cool. I like the blocks themselves. I'm not so keen on how they all fit together. I would have to use some vanilla blocks in amongst them. I mean, the textures are good. The textures are nice. But when I tried building this wall out of the living rock, it didn't look right together as a texture. So every now and again, using some living rock and some living wood is cool, and the textures are very good on their own. But on a large scale, I don't see them going together very well. They are sort of pretty cool. I'll give you that, Vazkii. I'll give you that. They're pretty cool. But they may need a little bit of toning. Because look at the difference between a vanilla texture and this. It's got all the elements there still, but it's slightly too much, too dark, too much. There's too much going on in it, and that's more subtle. So maybe turn down a few of the shading. I think it's the shading that does it. Makes it a little bit too cartoony in comparison to normal vanilla. But anyway, I've tested all those out. And quite pleased with how they work. They all seem to function properly, and you can make them all, and all the crafting recipes and everything work. That's pretty cool. And they look okay. Another thing that I've spotted in the Beta 10 was another new flower, which we looked at the other day, and this is the Hydranga. Hydroaneus. Yeah, Agnes. Hydrangea. I don't know. Hydrodranger. Anyway. One thing for sorting this out, I found that it takes the source blocks of nearby water sources. So you can have an infinite water source, such as this, 3 blocks of water, and the middle one becomes an infinite, and that will take one of the nearby sources, which would be the infinite source. And then all I've done is I've added a fourth and fifth on either end to make sure that this is always going to be, no matter where that takes it from, 1, 2 or 3 blocks, it'll take it from the diagonals as well. No matter where it takes the water from, it will always be refilled in an infinite water cycle. And literally to stop the flower from getting knocked over, because it has to be actually on the water level. It has to be on the same level as the water, like this, indented. So you could set up an infinite water source in a little L-shaped there, with this on the side. That should work as well. It's currently full, so it won't be doing much, because all of these are fairly full as well. That's not. So it should really be beaming up quite a lot. If we put a potency lens on there, it might get the mana distributed quicker to empty the flower. That mana spreader's not got much in. And that hydrangea's got loads. Oh well. We'll see how these things get tweaked over the course of the next updates. We're still in beta, and Vazkii's done a great job of beta so far. We're only on beta 10 here. Beta 12 has seen a load of changes, so I'm looking forward to going into beta 12 next and having a look around to see what the new stuff is. Vazkii asked if I could carry on doing this and do another little first glance at beta 12. I said yes, I will, and I'll add it onto this series when we're done. But this beta 10, I wanted to just have like a final look before moving on, because since I picked up the mod from beta 7, a lot of things have been added. A lot of things are being added very quickly, and I want to try and keep up with what we have in the book at the moment before seeing all of the many things that are coming into the book. things are developing nicely, shall we say. Developing very nicely. The other, that's the 3 power methods, the 3 generations of mana, which are generating flora. The Daybloom, the Endoflame, and the Hydranga. And I've managed to automate them as best as possible. So the water ones will constantly produce mana. The Daybloom ones, the sunlight ones, will constantly produce mana. So free resource light and free resource water, both of them constantly producing mana. The third, the Endoflame, is pretty much, if it's junk and you can burn it, you could probably just have a little burny chest and it'll just generate mana from your junk. If you really wanted, you could do a tree farm and constantly produce something that's burnable and then throw it in there as well. It's combustible materials, so potentially in part of a mod pack you would find that you could auto farm something that is combustible and generate mana that way. If you're just playing with Botania on its own, the Endoflame serves a purpose, but it's probably more hassle than it's worth. You'd probably want to keep your wood for yourself. Whereas the Dayblooms and the Hydrangas, they have the ability to have an infinite supply and give you an infinite mana source for free. So they would be the ones that you would most likely use if you were using Botania on its own. What else? Oh yes, a way of manipulating the mana beams using the boar beam. So as you can see over here, I've got it set up so that the Dayblooms are constantly feeding this mana spreader here, and this mana spreader is firing across the top of these cactus, hitting this mana spreader, going back into this mana spreader, and firing back across again across the next load of cactus into this mana spreader, which then puts it back into the network, as I'm calling it, the network, which fills up all the middle bits. So as you can tell, when I've put a boar lens on there, any cactus that grows will be caught by this mana as it's being passed through the network. The network of spreaders. Passed through there, quickly passed on, passed through here. Now of course it loses a little bit of mana. That's one of the things. As it passes from spreader to spreader, it loses a bit of mana. But when you've got an infinite supply over here, it doesn't really matter how much ends up getting to your battery, as it were, your mana pool, so long as it's doing the job. So this is a very simple cactus farm. I could do it on a much larger scale with this system, but I have a feeling that this would be adequate for most people. The cactus then drops into the water flows down into some hoppers, the hoppers run into a little redstone clickety-click thing, and all of the cactus that's grown comes up into the chest ready for collection. So it's just a cactus farm using Botania mana spreaders and the boar lens. And I figured I could do exactly the same thing with sugarcane, because the sugarcane has the same properties as the cactus in a way. It grows up, you take the top layer off, and then it will carry on growing again. It'll grow up again. So I could do exactly the same thing off this mana spreader, aiming to another little run here, to have an automatic sugarcane farm as well, which is pretty cool. I had a look through what other vegetables there were, and there's not really a lot you can do with other vegetables. Potentially you could have an automated pumpkin and melon farm with the mana spreaders firing from here. Oh, that's good. That was good. Excellent. Excellent job. With the mana spreaders firing through the field, so you would put it down facing towards you. Facing towards you. There you go. And have it so that it's constantly firing a burst through the pumpkin patch to another mana spreader, which is heading in the other direction, and then onto another spreader that's going through the melon patch, and then you would angle a spreader from here up into the network or somewhere else, wherever you wanted to go. And you could quite adequately keep farming pumpkins and melons. The only problem with the pumpkin and melon farm in this style would be, where does it drop? Because it could drop onto the stem when you break it with a mana spreader with a bore lens, it could break onto the stem, which is why I decided that wasn't going to be the most efficient way of using it. But it is possible. So maybe there's something we can do to make sure that they bounce the right direction. I don't know, maybe there'll be something in future updates that will make this possible, to make farming with mana spreaders a possibility. We shall see. So the network that I've got going on at the moment is all pretty much leading into and through in 4 quarters. I've got 4 quarters here. The first quarter here I've developed quite intensively. The other quarter here I just quickly put into that first quarter. So we've got quite a lot of mana heading into those couple of quarters, from those couple of quarters into the mana pools. And we've already got a full mana pool down here. This mana pool down there is already full. This one's pretty much full. These have got a long way to go because they're not receiving any mana at the minute. And so you can see that the pool above is also starting to fill. And then I had the idea that then this mana spreader here would be able to funnel it back out into another place if you wanted it to, from the sort of like the tank, the mana pool tank, the center point, the focus point. And I thought it would look quite nice. I thought it looked quite good as in the focal point like this, as some sort of center of my little town here, with the mana pools there. And I've got the jaded flowers here, constantly feeding from those mana pools to produce flowers to make my petals. So I can just come along and just smash a few petals down, and it will automatically replenish my supplies. So I can come and harvest petals from this kind of setup here. And it uses very little mana, which means that then there's a central garden in Botania where all the mana comes to, and all of the flowers will grow around for you to then carry on your experiments in Botania and make all the other things you need. One thing we looked at but didn't really do anything about was the mana pylons. Mana pylons, you only need 2 to be exactly the same as having a full bookcase enchantments. And if we put this diamond pick in, for instance, it's a level 30 enchant from just 2 mana pylons and an enchanting table. Pretty cool feature. And I've been reading the notes that Vazkii has been making for Beta 12 and future releases, and there's a lot more XP orientated flowers and things coming in. There's a hell of a lot of flowers coming in, which is why I didn't want to just jump straight into the biggest update so far, as it were, on the Beta 12. One of the things that I promised that we'd have a look at was the functional flora. The jaded we've already seen. The tiger's eye was to keep creepers at bay. The Hexadreams will make nearby mobs turn against each other, and the Bellathorn will slowly inflict harm on any living beings apart from players around it. Now, I experimented a bit with those down here in the entrance here, so let's turn it off peaceful. Let's go to normal. And what we'll see is zombies that come over to try and get into the village, and also a few other things that are going to need to be killed in the meantime. They're after the villagers. We know this. Zombies after villagers, that's the norm. So we could protect the villagers by turning zombies against zombies. That's a possibility. We could protect the villagers by keeping the creepers away. That's a possibility. But we can't protect the villagers by causing harm to them, so that doesn't work. Let me just throw a few random torches around here, as I didn't really finish lighting the place up properly as we were going around, sorting it all out in peaceful. As you do, you forget about lighting up against mobs. I lit most of that area up. So, let's see. These zombies over here are now heading towards the villagers, heading towards the village. And as soon as they get close to these flowers, look, they turn against each other. And now he's completely lost interest in the villagers, and he's heading off to try and take on that skeleton over there. Because he feels aggressive and angry to other mobs now. So they'll have a bit of a fight, and I reckon the skeleton will win that one. Here's another skeleton. This skeleton gets into range of the flowers, and will start looking around for other mobs to kill. Let's give him something to target, shall we? Let's get some horde of zombies out. Zombies. There we go. Let's spawn up a horde of zombies over here and see if this skeleton will actually do any good. There we go. So it seems the skeleton isn't that fussed about the zombies. The zombies, they've decided that they want to have a go. And these ones around here have all decided to go to this end of... yeah, this end of everything. Okay, to try and get the villagers. So you'd have to do some form of network of fences and things around here to stop the mobs from getting in. The only entrance I've got is this, so I was hoping that they would all try and pathfind to get into there. And maybe trap a skeleton or so in here, because they're not really that hostile against you when it happens. So they wander quite a ways after they've had a dose of the flower here. The flower itself will turn them away quite quickly. Look, as soon as they get it, they're after other zombies. Or are they? Tracking, fighting amongst themselves. So the flowers seem to work very well. They do what they say they're going to do, which is important, isn't it? And that also means that these are not trying to get into the village via the main gate. So it's just a simple couple of things like this. I've got a tiger eye to keep creepers away, and I've got a Hesse dream to turn mobs against each other as they get close. And if I pop a creeper, the creeper now has me in its sights. Let's just go down to normal mode. Get some action. Come on, guys, come and get me. Come and get me. Go. Fight something else. Okay, you're not doing it, are you? Go and fight something else. Leave me alone. Yep. That was good. So, maybe it needs another target. Maybe it needs something. Maybe it has to have another creature available to it in order to draw its attention away from the actual objective here. And scoop up all my stuff so it doesn't just lie around on the floor. And my book went all the way over here. Cool. So, I'm not 100% sure how useful those flowers are. I mean, they obviously have purpose. And I've been playing around with ideas for things. One of the things that I've thought of and I've suggested to Vazkii was having some sort of ability to increase the damage that the damage lenses are doing. Potentially as they sort of power up, passing through one mana spreader to another. And I was thinking along the lines that you would have maybe a fence. So you'd have a couple of mana spreaders and then another couple of mana spreaders, all with damage lenses on, all being fed power, and they would feed in a circuit around. So let's say the whole area, we could just have mana spreaders all the way around the whole area, and any mobs that pass through, because the mana's been flowing around the place for so many times, anything that passes through would just almost insta-die. So nothing could get in. So you wouldn't need walls. You would have mana spreaders. And you could also then potentially have yourself... oh, let's just get rid of the mobs here. You could have yourself hoppers around the place as well in key areas. So anything that passes through the mana spreaders to come and attack your base would insta-die, and all of its drops would fall into the hoppers below. There's things that are still being done and being improved by Vazkii. The mod is definitely not ready yet. It's definitely still a beta. But it is a very awesome beta to play around with. So I recommend you go and have a look, have a download, and go and see what you can come up with the beta 12. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go and download the beta 12 and go and start having a look at all of the new stuff that's appeared in Botania. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you're enjoying this mod and the method in which I'm exploring it. We will delve into the next level of Botania very soon.